Welcome to Vitafriends Voices, a podcast brought to you by Vitaflo, where we will share your stories. Each episode will bring you engaging interviews with inspiring individuals who are either living with a protein disorder or are experts at the forefront of their field.
So today's episode focuses on a PKU Back to Clinic initiative carried out in Austria, also more commonly referred to as Return to Diet. In this episode, we will explore this journey from the experience of an adult with PKU, as well as a healthcare professional, to help us better understand why individuals might disengage from their clinic in the first place. We will also explore the what, the why, and the how of returning to diet, and really dive into the support required to best support all individuals with PKU, despite their geographical location or financial status. So today we have with us Harald, who is living with PKU and participated in the study, as well as his Dr. Max, who was involved in running it. And we want to acknowledge that language is important. And although the clinical term lost to follow up is used within this episode, we very much recognize that individuals with PKU aren't lost. Some may simply not currently be under the care of a metabolic team. So with that in mind, welcome to the Vitafriends Voices podcast, Harald and Max.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Great to have you. Just before we begin, could you introduce yourselves a little bit, just so the audiences can get to know you?
Yeah, hello, my name is Harald, and I was diagnosed with PKU, and the conventional wisdom back at the time was that I have to maintain a specialized diet and supplement with special protein shakes. Back in the day, you had to maintain a diet for 8 years, and then you were done. You could eat whatever you want, do whatever you want. Through the years, later on, it was kind of this thing, yeah, you could maintain diet, but it was never really clear cut. It was always, yeah. So actually, when finishing school, I had short terms where I picked up the diet, but then left it. And so it's been kind of an on and off. And about a year ago, a little more than a year ago, I received a letter from the hospital, from Max, and that it's actually one should maintain a diet again and new research, and they're doing a study. And I replied, said, okay, I'll look into that. And we had a meeting, discussed how to get back into it, and I've been maintaining the diet ever since.
And the rest is history. We'll go into that a lot more, actually. But Max, perhaps if you just tell us a little bit about yourself before we move on.
Sure. So I think Harald, he mentioned some things that I do. I'm an MD as a background, and I'm doing my PhD now at the General Hospital of Vienna. And my research focuses on PKU and especially the microbiome in PKU. And we have this huge project where we try to get back lost to follow-up patients into the clinic and reinitiate diet.
Very fascinating.
Indeed. So can you just pick that up a little bit in terms of maybe give us a sort of a brief overview of the study?
Of course. So in 2019, we started with checking the data of the newborn screening in Austria, which was initiated in 1966. And we checked all PKU patients diagnosed in the National Austrian Newborn Screening from 1966 until 1999. We checked how many patients were diagnosed with PKU. In our analysis, 279. And of those, we checked in all metabolic clinics in Austria how many of those patients have been in contact with a clinic within the past 2 years. And we found more than 60% were lost to follow-up. So in our follow-up question, we examined, we tried to get back these patients into the clinic. We conducted letter campaigns and also telephone campaigns. And we could get in contact with 25%. So 34 patients were got back with the clinic. And of those, 60% started again with the diet, so 21 patients. That is the main frame of our study.
That's great. So if I get this right, then you identified that 60% of the patients were lost to follow-up, and that essentially means that they're not actively attending a metabolic clinic. Is that right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
So within the past 2 years, these patients didn't have contact with a metabolic clinic in Austria. And this correlates with the data we seen in the US, where Berry et al. In 2013, they published that more than 60% are also lost to follow-up in the US. Also, the WHO has some data where 50% of chronically ill patients are not adherent to the recommended diet.
Yeah. And if we then just think about that a little bit further, as a medical doctor, what do you think the barriers are to patients or individuals with PKU not engaging with their metabolic center?
Yeah, so the main points that we gathered from the study are that the dietary changes throughout the years, the recommended dietary changes. So as Harald said before, it was until 8 years, until 12 years, until 16 years. And now we know since the 90s that they have to stick to a lifelong diet. So basically we talk about this lost generation before the 90s, patients who are aged around 40 years, and they don't know about these changes. Another barrier is the transition from child pediatric clinic to adult metabolic clinic. We are seriously underrepresented in the adult metabolic clinics, and this produces also a huge barrier.
Yeah, and Harald, you were nodding your head there.
Yes, I have to agree with that. I didn't even know that an adult clinic was available until I got the letter from the study, and that was a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
The feedback you get, the information was just so different, and was a whole different ballgame.
So just picking up on that, Harald, then, can you just explain to us what it was like getting that letter? How did that make you feel?
Well, initially getting a letter, reading, okay, you pretty much have to pick up the diet again. Well, first you think, okay, I have to get back into that. And then said, okay, it's better for your health. You should do it. And contacted Max, was very friendly. Great service, by the way.
Thank you.
Can only say the best about Max and the whole clinic, and the help and insight they provided was amazing. And well, the big difference when I started out again, they gave me a big welcome package of the product, what's available. And I think it was, you probably know this better than I do, like 10, 12 years that I did diet the last time. And even in that time frame, so much has improved. The protein shakes they taste wonderful now. Back in my childhood, it was terrible. You wouldn't imagine it was a torture. But the protein shakes, they come neatly packaged. It's easy to take them to work anywhere you want to go. The products, the diet-free products, protein-free products, they have really increased a lot. There's so much more available. So maintaining the diet has become so much easier than it's ever been before. And that made a huge difference. It made it a lot easier getting back into it.
Yeah, that's great. And there's a few steps to take as well to get back onto diet, isn't there?
Well, it was interesting. They gave me this plan on how to get back, first to cut all meat, eat veggies only. That's not how I did it. I said, okay, I'll do it or I don't do it. So I'm not one for half measures. I've done it before. I should be able to do it again, and just cut the stuff you maybe kind of want to eat. Just don't do it. Do a step into the diet, and it works. It's possible, yeah.
Was there any one food that you didn't think you could do without?
Not really. Having grown up maintaining the diet, I've never really been big on meat or stuff. Cheese, maybe. There are supplements now. There are products that supplement that, and maybe on a rare occasion, once in 2 months, maybe you get the craving, you want something. But the best thing you can do is you go home, make yourself a decent food, cook yourself a decent meal, tastes good, and it's gone. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, even a low protein diet can be very
Yeah,
tasty.
it can be delicious. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And maybe if we just take a step back, because there's a lot of detail in there and we've skipped over a little bit, because if we think about it, you mentioned when we started this conversation that in Austria, the advice was to come off diet, be very strict on diet up until the age of 8.
Right.
Now, there's always been a few years in between you being 8
Yes.
and now. So what happened after you turned 8 in terms of your diet and your PKU? If you can just give us a little bit of insight there, just for our audiences to understand what the guidance was, how you have developed over the years up until the study.
Well, what happened, they allowed you to eat anything, which wasn't so easy, by the way. If you haven't eaten meat or any other products, at first, I didn't even like it as much as you'd imagine. And you actually had to learn. And I said, I don't want to eat that. When my mom gave me well, if you don't eat that, you have to do the diet again. And remember, those protein shakes were terrible back in the day. So, okay, you actually had to learn how to eat regular food. And it wasn't really that much fun. So if you're born with it, you do the diet, and it's actually best case scenario because you're really not missing anything.
If I may add something, there's a problem we see with emerging therapies also now that people might be able to just eat more of things they couldn't eat before. Something called neophobia, where they are afraid of eating new things that they were first strictly couldn't eat.
Interesting.
And that is something we can see.
And that makes complete sense, doesn't it? Because if you've grown up being told that you cannot have these foods, they're going to make you really unwell, and then all of a sudden you're told have them freely, then that starts.
Yeah, it was really weird. I remember when I was a kid, my brother would have chocolate, and I said, "Why is he going so crazy with chocolate?" Of course, I've never had it, so you wouldn't know.
No, if you don't have the palate for it, then
That's right.
oh, absolutely.
And just taking us back then, Max, in terms of you talked about the overview of the study, what in particular did you do to re-engage patients?
Right. So first we found, we established, okay, there's a lot of lost to follow-up patients. Then we checked in the central register of Austrian residents. We checked all the addresses, and we sent out letters, 130 letters, and we with a telephone number. And now the guidelines changed. You have to stick to a lifelong diet, and that we have since 2017 an adult metabolic clinic. And then people contacted us. I specifically had a telephone for the study, and they rang me, and we invited them to the clinic. We had a talk and explained the pathophysiology of PKU. A lot of patients, they didn't even know what's happening with me. What is this disease? And we explained to them with a dietitian also. And
yes, I have to agree. Of course, you know the basics of the diet, but it's actually never been explained quite as well as Max and the dietitian did it back in the day. So you really knew exactly, okay, how does this work? What's really happening? And it was really eye-opening.
And I guess back in the day it was explained to your parents, and this time around it's explained to you.
It's right. Well, they did explain it to you. How do you explain to a 6-year-old kid how this works? Basics you know about, but yes, of course, it needs to be lectured to an adult.
Yeah. So Max, you mentioned there that you gave a thorough explanation of almost the what, to understand the what and the why of PKU and the importance of diet. And what else did you do as well?
We gave them the welcome box, like Harald mentioned, with a variety of products where they can just taste for themselves the difference to before. Some patients, they discontinued diet because of halitosis, it's called in medicine. And it's basically bad smell of the breath, yeah. And these things are not an issue today anymore. And they could taste for themselves that, okay, these supplements are not that bad anymore. And yeah, I think that was really good for our patients to just try different things, try fee-free products, and see that is not that bad. Yeah.
And is that right? Would you say, Harald, that
Yes,
it's
absolutely.
not that bad?
It not that bad is an understatement. Even, like I said, in the last 10, 12 years, the improvements have been amazing. The products are really, now I have a protein shake, almost want to have another one because it actually tastes good. Of course, you pace yourself for in order for it to be effective, but it's just so much better, and it's not a burden anymore. The diet back in the day, it used to be a burden. It's not anymore. Really, I mean, you eat, you have your specialized food, you take your shakes, and it's not an issue at work. The people I work closely with, they know about it, they've accepted it, and say, okay, so it's not a big deal, really.
I want to touch a little bit more on that, actually, because that's really interesting. So you said at work it's not an issue. So have you been able, and have you felt like you've been able to communicate the fact that you got PKU, you're following this particular diet to your colleagues, and how did they react, I guess?
Well, first, usually it depends on how closely I work with them. When people ask me, I give them the Cliff Notes version, the basic overview. I have to do this, I have to maintain this diet, and I don't go into it much deeper. Of course, when I work a lot with them, and if I see they're interested, and I explain it in more detail, they say, yeah, okay, it's not so much fun, but it's okay, they accept it. And the fun thing, ever since I picked up the diet again, and people at work have confirmed it, you too, by the way, that when you pick up a diet, I have so much more energy. That's maybe the biggest difference. When I have a hard day at work, I might get tired, more fatigued, and that's not an issue. You take your protein shake and you're good to go for however long you need to work or do whatever you want to do. So that's the biggest benefit, I think, is more energy. You're more alive. You're able to do more stuff. It's a big reward.
Yes.
So what changes have you noticed then from both of you? We're talking about the energy there. Anything from you, Max?
So I may want to start. As Harald said, most patients, almost all patients, I would say, described less fatigue. That was a big quality of life change for them. And less headaches. Patients described that they feel like they have headache before. Also, what they also described was that they feel like they have more mental clarity. Before it used to be maybe like walking through the woods, and the woods are foggy and they don't see clearly. Now the fog has cleared out, and they have mental clarity. Yeah. What Harald also described, maybe you can describe for yourself, that he had like some skin issues before.
That's right. When
which got better.
I hadn't done a diet before. I had some skin issues, which I didn't pinpoint. Went to the doctor, of course, and never really got rid of it. Ever since maintaining the diet, this is gone. Of course, you take products which the body needs. Not being able to break down that specific amino acid lacks things and elements the body needs, and the diet took care of that. I don't have that problem anymore. Plus, another benefit is better metabolism as a whole. I was able to lose a lot of weight without trying to lose weight, just better food. Yeah, that does a lot of good.
And what about the people around you? Have they mentioned any changes in you?
Yes, some have. The weight loss has been obvious. And like I said, the fact that I have more energy, I seem more alive, which is a great benefit at work. I do some bigger projects now, and I'm quite frankly not sure if I would have been able to do them as well as I do now with the diet. I'm not sure if the energy would have been sufficient.
That's remarkable to hear, actually, and to hear you both talking there in terms of you both different perspectives on this, which is fascinating. So if somebody's listening to this podcast, Harald, and they may be thinking about returning to diet, is there one piece of advice you would give them?
Yes, do it. It has so many benefits. It may seem daunting at first. They'll pick up the diet again and do submitting the blood samples for checking if you're well within your acceptable margin. But it's not really that big of a deal. And if you really cannot do it, well, you shouldn't break diet. But still, at least give it a shot.
Okay.
And I guess my next question then is, how would you ask people how would you, if you were to do it again, what sort of a step-by-step approach for someone who's in your shoes, where they can start going back on diet? So perhaps they re-engage with their metabolic center like you did with Max. What's next then, do you reckon? If you were to start from where you started, what advice would you give?
I would try, like a big issue was the welcome packs that's been mentioned before. Really try the products, try the new protein shakes. Even if you don't have the diet yet, just see what it does for you, a little by little. Even if you don't have diet, take the protein shakes. Maybe you take a little too much. Never mind. You'll see, do I feel a change? Do I feel better? Is there more energy? And then step by step, try those new foods. They're really good. They're delicious. They're really like pasta. Vitaflo pasta is wonderful. There's like no difference to regular food. Just take it little by little, and eventually I think you'll find out it's not that bad.
So step by step.
Yes.
Yeah. And Max, I suppose the same question to you, really.
Yeah.
How would you want a patient to re-engage with you?
So what we did in our study was we did weekly dried blood spots. And I think that is also important thing to do, just to closely monitor the Phe values. Harald could see after, I think, 1 month that Phe levels were within normal range, which is what we saw with almost all patients. And yeah, the welcome box, I would say also. And yeah, just have a close contact with the metabolic clinic. But there is also a responsibility for us, of course. We have to keep in contact with our patients. The telephone that I had where they could reach me at any time was also a big step towards better adherence.
Since you mentioned the blood tests, I remember back in the childhood, it was grim days. I had this old, really painful needles where it was pinch in a finger and it would hurt a lot. Now this is really easy. The diabetes blood samples, there's give me a whole bunch of samples. You don't feel it even anymore. It's so maybe that's a deterrent to some people. So even that has changed so much for the better.
And I'm intrigued, Max. You've talked about the welcome pack, which clearly played a big part, and Harald, you've mentioned that, receiving that as well. Are you able to just give us an outline of what was in there?
Of course. So we had Phe-free pasta, we had Phe-free bread, we had a bunch of supplements, a lot of books on PKU with simplified illustrations of how the pathophysiology works, and also some cooking books.
Cooking books, a lot of cooking books. Step-by-step guide on how to get back into the diet for people who maybe need to take their time and pace themselves. So really anything you could imagine. There's so much advice, even more than I would need, but it's great for other people who maybe struggle more with getting back into the diet.
That was a really good benefit for you to have that.
Yes.
You talked earlier about the communications, the letter, the welcome you had, but the welcome pack itself was something that...
Yeah, that was something, and great communication with the clinic, of course.
And I suppose that's something you can refer back to as well, now that you got the welcome pack. If you should become unsure, you can refer back to those booklets that you were mentioning there as well.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. And you can, if I'm unsure about anything, if my Phe values have been good, but if there was a problem, I'd call up and ask if there's a problem or what can I do to improve to get better. But yeah.
It's really nice to see the relationship that the two of you have got. There's obviously a lot of respect between the two of you and also a lot of support almost from each of you. So how did you build that relationship?
Well, when I came back to the clinic, I met Max. He was very friendly, very welcoming, very calm and at ease. It's not like, as a child, it was often the doctor was very intimidating. And quite frankly, I would always dread going in there. And that was, back in the day, actually, that was the hardest part, the clinic part, because it would always seem, I have this thing, and what did I do wrong again? And it's totally different now. It's really like having a good friend.
I think the same about you. Very friendly, but also for me, I have a big respect for all PKU patients who start again with the diet. Absolutely. It's a huge step. It's a life-changing step, and I don't know if I could do it. So big respect to you also.
Thank you. Likewise.
Certainly not easy. People say it's just a diet, but it's not just a diet, is it?
Well, what I've come to realize in life with any affliction, problem, or maybe even adverse situation you're being thrown into, first you have to take it head on, deal with it the best you can, and then do not make it the center of your life. This could go for the diet, for any problem you have. Don't make it your sole focus point in life. Find a hobby, could be anything, some art, dance, music, whatever. For me, it's filmmaking, and focus on that. And the diet exists. Okay, I know when I have to eat. I have to take my protein shakes, have my specialist food, but that's just, you do it 3 times a day, and that's like 10% of your time, or I don't know. But don't have it be the main focus of your life. It's there, respect it, do it well, and just live a normal life.
I really love that advice, actually, not having that as the main focus. And do you think that's sometimes some of the barriers that people may feel in terms of returning to diet, because there is so much emphasis on that?
Yes.
That becomes the main focus?
Absolutely. I mean, the mind is a powerful thing.
Very.
It controls every single function in our body. Have the proper focus. And I know that's a lot easier said than done. Don't be afraid of it. Fear, if you fear too much, could be anything in life, that will affect your health negatively. Again, it's easy to say that. It takes a long time to accomplish that, but try to keep positive thoughts about everything and find your proper focus. Again, I know it takes time. It took time for me as well, but ultimately that will help.
Is it almost an example of short-term pain for long-term gain when it comes to starting back on the diet? Because it's a lot at first, but then it almost becomes routine. It almost becomes a learned behavior, if that makes sense.
That's actually a good way to describe it, yes.
Yeah.
So initially, it might be a little painful, a struggle, but it becomes routine and the benefits are clear and evident.
Yeah, and you become more familiar with what you need to
Absolutely.
do.
For example, except for cooking, of course, but I don't weigh my food unless I prepare a meal. I don't deal with, I'm bad with numbers in the first place. So, but you start to develop a feeling, okay, maybe today I might have eaten a little too much, happened to me on a weekend, then on Sunday I cut back and I instantly feel better. You start to develop a sense of what works and what doesn't work. And if you're unsure, just submit a blood sample and you'll know.
And that's quite nice, actually. You don't have to be perfect. And I think that's important for people listening, that it's not a perfect science. And with the blood spot monitoring, you can monitor how you're doing. And I guess that's also for you, Max, a real good measure of success in a way, but also you can then guide Harald towards, lower Phe levels if required. Or,
right.
Even to add in a bit more protein sometimes if you've been too strict.
I've actually had that situation. I've had, I think, one of my last samples was actually a little too good, and had to add. Well, there are different situations where monitoring becomes very important. I maintain a diet, but maybe you have a situation at work where, okay, I've had my protein, I've had my meal, my specialist meal, and then I'm out at work somewhere on location. okay, I'm still hungry, I need to eat something. You might try the least worst food you can possibly have, and your value's gone up, and then submit a blood sample and see, okay, that's how it went. You submit another blood sample a few days later to find out how bad those values are, if they're dropped fast or slow. And it's very interesting to see how it affects you and how fast, in my experience for myself, if I have a situation like that and I have to eat something that contains a little more protein than it should, usually it drops pretty fast. So if you stick to a diet very strictly, especially in the days after, it drops pretty fast. And I've actually never had an adverse value that would be off the charts and harmful. So yeah, that's when communication and tests are important.
So Max, coming back to you then, in terms of what do you think we can do as healthcare professionals, and an industry, to encourage this ongoing patient engagement? Because what's come out very strongly so far is that that's what's working, and it's, what can we do to encourage that even more?
Right. So I think we should start in adolescence. What we saw in our other study, where we checked for risk factors for becoming lost to follow-up, we saw that poor adherence during adolescence is a key factor or a significant factor for becoming lost to follow-up later. So maybe focus on adolescents and children, and then decreasing the rate of lost to follow-up patients later on in life. Maybe keep an eye on children whose blood Phe levels maybe are not optimal, and check that they don't get lost to follow-up. And also maybe improve the transition from pediatric clinic to adult clinic. Increase the amount of adult metabolic clinics, a big issue. And promote the taste and the good taste of supplements, of your supplements also. I think these are key factors. Maybe start early and then decrease later on the loss to follow-up rate. And for re-engaging the patients who are lost to follow-up already, I think how we have done it was pretty good. I mean, we had a 25% success rate. Doesn't sound amazing, but for this field, it's pretty good. So we had systematic letter campaigns, first letter campaign, second letter campaign, telephone outreach. In the telephone outreach, we successfully reached 7 patients out of 20. A lot of these telephone numbers were incorrect, so we couldn't get in touch with those people. But telephone outreach was the most successful, even though we didn't have enough phone numbers. I think systematic outreach for the already lost to follow-up patients.
Did you do any advertising in media?
We did also in Harald's company where he works in the. It's similar to BBC in the UK, ORF it's called, where we promoted our study, and also in the Austrian Society for Inborn Errors of Metabolism. It's like a self-help group. They promoted us. These were the main ways.
So you had that support around you then to sort of get the message out there.
Yeah.
Okay. And if there are any healthcare professionals listening to this globally who think, wow, that looks a really good study, how easy would it be for somebody else globally to sort of replicate the study?
Right. I think there's always the ethical problem and data security problem to go about getting addresses from patients. And I don't know how other countries handle these problems. If anyone is out there and wants to know more or like collaborate with us, he can text or like write me an email.
Okay.
And of course, we would be very happy. And I think this is also something that we have to promote in inborn errors of metabolism and rare diseases, just to collaborate internationally. There's so few patients out there.
Yeah, and it is a universal issue, really, the trying to get in touch with those individuals who are not engaging with the metabolic center for one reason or another. There's many reasons, isn't there? And I think it's really nice of you to say, you know what, if you need some support, then reach out to me and we can collaborate. And I think that's really nice to have that collaboration. And like you said, we need to have more of that, and perhaps also more collaboration between industry, healthcare professionals, patients, and so forth. But it is nice to almost create that sense of community that we are working together in order to improve overall management, right?
Right. So that's also a reason why I got into this field. It's such a small community, but we're so strong. And I go to congresses. I meet the same people every time, and it's really lovely, I have to say. And Harald, I like too. And yeah.
But that's the same for you in a way, isn't it, Harald? Like when you go to different patient meetings, perhaps you see also the same faces.
Actually, I haven't been to patient meetings.
Would you go, you think?
I will be soon enough, I think.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Is that the next step on your journey then?
Well, I'm always a bit of a person who I try to figure out my problems by myself as best I can.
Okay.
And only when I can't handle them anymore, I reach out.
Right. And if we can just think of the future then, Max, I'll come to you first. What is next in terms of your research?
So our study is finished by now, and we're still analyzing our data. We have a lot of data. We have neuropsychological testing. We have MRI data. We have to correlate with neuropsychological testing and stool samples, where we look at the microbiome. So a lot to investigate and explore. And that is my next goal.
So when you say MRIs, do you mean MRIs of the brain? Or?
Of the brain, exactly. Yeah.
So you mentioned there that there's a few things that you haven't yet published and you're looking into at the moment. And what is it that you're hoping to find out with the MRIs of the brain, but also the microbiome?
Right. So with the MRIs, we do 7 Tesla MRI and 3 Tesla MRI. If we have to explain, or I think I have to, 3 Tesla MRI is more like anatomical MRI, where we look at white matter hyperintensities, which are commonly described in PKU. And also in the 7 Tesla, we look at brain metabolites. And now with Harald also, he at time point 0, so without diet, and after 4 months, we try to see what changes in the brain, if we can correlate these changes with neuropsychological testing. And the same with the stool samples, so with the microbiome, so any changes compared to healthy controls, compared to continuously treated PKU patients. A lot.
That's a lot, but very exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. So as you say, there's lots of research to be done out there. So Harald, the same question for you really, in terms of what does the future look like for you in terms of diet, in terms of your management of PKU? How's that looking?
I'll just keep going, guys. I have been this past year or so. Maybe if time allows, try some new recipes of cooking. Not a big cook, really.
Okay.
That's actually a big thing. Maybe we should talk about it, especially with companies that produce products that have really improved. Practicality is a big issue. So especially if you, I guess maybe for younger, for teens, if they're out and want to go out and stuff, so it's easy to I don't know, bring food along and prepare it fast. And if you're at work, you have to travel, maybe facilitate traveling. And I don't know, maybe I'm interested to see what companies come up with in the future.
Is there any one thing you'd like to see in that area?
Something like a food you can really prepare fast, like well, it shouldn't be unhealthy like fast food. Maybe you could put it in a microwave, or it would be great to take it to work. We have microwaves, of course, at work. You just pop it in and have it beautiful. I know it's a lot to ask, but that's something that would be very helpful indeed.
Yeah. Well, it's good the idea is being put out there. So thank you very much for that. And thank you both very much for what has been a really interesting podcast episode. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And to our listeners, if you like this episode, please like and subscribe to this podcast and share with anyone you think might benefit from tuning in. Thank you for joining our vibrant community of Vitafriends. And for more information, please visit your local Vitafriends website. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Bye.